Hello, welcome to the Source Weekly's endorsement coverage. This is the Bend Metro Parks and Recreation race. I want to say that I'm grateful for both of you for being here today. We are going to start out with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, if you could just state your name and the position that you're running for all the listeners at home, and say why you're running.
Okay, great. My name is Elizabeth Hughes, Weide, and I'm running for position 5 of the Bend Parks and Rec District Board of Directors. And the primary reason I'm running is because I'm very impressed with the parks. I've lived in a lot of different cities across the country, and we by far have the nicest park system that I've ever encountered. And I'm very impressed that the parks are able to maintain their own control over their budget through the special district. And so it's an organization I truly believe in, and just very interested in participating in both budgetary decisions, future decisions about expansions, helping. I have a background in environmental permitting and environmental compliance, and so I'm interested in things that might involve permitting, maybe any kind of river activity, trails along the rivers, bridges across the rivers, that sort of thing. And so anyway, it's right up my alley. I'm a geologist by training, and I'm very interested in the natural environment. And so it's interesting to me, both because it's a great organization and because it would be very intellectually stimulating for me personally. Thank you.
Deb, let's go to you next.
I'm Deb Schon, and I'm also running for position 5 of the Bend Park and Recreation District Board of Directors. I had a lengthy 40-year public servant career in the park and recreation field. Obviously, I cared about it and believe in it. I believe that a strong park and recreation system is transformative to a community, and I agree completely with Elizabeth that we have one that is an award winner not only across the state, but across the nation. And because I have also been a lifelong volunteer, once I retired and we made our home in Bend, there was no doubt that I was going to become involved with some groups and organizations that I believed in. I also serve on the board of the Mountain Star Relief Nursery. I'm the incoming treasurer with that group, and they work with families to support them in the hopes of avoiding child abuse. But like Elizabeth, I believe in this organization. I think it's a great one, and I knew that I wanted to be involved with them in some manner. I had worked with some of the staff when I was at the special district in the Beaverton area. I absolutely believe in what they do. I think they do a wonderful job of a lot of things. I do believe there's work to be done on equity and accessibility and ensuring that all community members have access to a park. I think the pandemic has really demonstrated how important a close to home park or trail is. And I just want to continue to move the district in that direction. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to both of you. So we'll toggle back and forth between who gets to go first. Some of you, well, Deb, you mentioned a little bit of this already, but we want to know what you believe the biggest issues concerning the district are.
Well, it's, I probably would have had a very different answer a year ago. I mean, the pandemic has changed a lot of things, although some of them remain the same. So I will start with the community priorities of homelessness and affordable housing, which is something we've worked on diligently. And I feel like we have contributed as a strong partner in supporting affordable housing and working with the city of Bend and Deschutes County. But I also believe that the incredible growth that we're seeing is going to be a challenge for the Park District. We do have wonderful facilities and wonderful opportunities, but maintaining that current level of service is going to be very difficult with the current level of growth that we are seeing. So that's going to be a challenge. And that, that kind of piggybacks on the SDC waivers that are important to assist affordable housing, but we have to have a way to provide park and rec experiences, quality park and rec experiences for those who are coming into the community. And then during the pandemic, one of the things that was really evident that childcare is an issue. And I'm very proud that the Park and Rec stepped up. I believe at the last report, we served about 700 children in that program during the pandemic. We were able to support online learning while also adding enrichment activities. We did that in cooperation with the Ben Lapine School District. And again, at the last reporting, it's going to be about a $1.3 million project. And 65% of those children were on some kind of scholarship funding for the activities. So those are the things that I see as top priorities currently.
Okay, Elizabeth, would you like me to repeat the question?
No. Okay, but thank you. Yeah, so I agree with Deb on this, the issue of the interrelationship sort of between the park supporting the affordable housing concerns here in town, but also working with trying to basically my concern is that the SDC waivers, the SDC is for expanding and growing the parks, it's for growth. And as the town grows, if we take money away from the parks through these waivers, we're taking park opportunities away from the people who are being served in the affordable housing. And as a city grows, it's like all of the infrastructure needs to grow. And if our parks are shrinking as our population is growing, it's just like, the traffic issues we have. It's just like all the other infrastructure. If we don't expand the sewer system, it's just like you have to, if you're going to grow, you have to be responsible about all aspects of growth. And again, I'm pretty impressed with the fact that Bend was able to set up their own funding system for the parks. And so they actually have a huge leg up on a lot of cities who are going through growth, huge growth. And I'd kind of like them I'd like to be a part of helping them use the fact that parks are part of our overall city infrastructure to understand the importance, along with providing support for low-income or medium-income families. I think the parks and recreation are a huge part of that, especially because a lot of times people who are in affordable housing might be in townhomes or apartment complexes and may not have a place to have family events and stuff that they want to do outdoors. And so they're going to use the parks. So that's a big interest of mine in terms of keeping that balance, because so far Bend has done a fabulous job of keeping that balance. The other thing that Deb mentioned, and I agree with this, is providing scholarships for some of these low-income kids. And I know that the Parks has a foundation where they do provide scholarships for low-income children to participate in some of the park programs. I think that's fabulous. And I was actually the scholarship chair for a professional group called the Women's Transportation Seminar. I was a transportation environmental person in San Francisco. And so we raised money to get low-income first-generation college students into some of the best schools in the Bay Area, like Berkeley and Stanford. And I see this as sort of the same idea of providing scholarship opportunities to help kids get ahead in their lives. And like I said, I'm a geologist by training, and one of the reasons I went into geology and environmental is because I realized how vitally important spending time outdoors is to me personally. And I think for a lot of kids, it really helps with a lot of personal growth.
Elizabeth, I'm going to come to you with this question. What are your thoughts on on COVID's impact to the Park and Recreation District budget, and what do you see as the board's next role in this respect?
Well, I know that they've, like, for instance, with the Larkspur Community Center, they had to hold off on opening it, even though it was ready to open, to make sure they could accommodate the COVID restrictions. And so I know that it's been very much of a, it's been very difficult to meet their income goals, because at the same time they're certainly continuing with their expenses. And so during COVID, I know they haven't had, just like all businesses, they haven't had total control over their income sources, because they've had to shut down and cancel classes and do everything that all businesses have had to do through this experience. What I am understanding, though, from talking with the staff yesterday when we were on this budget tour, was that now that they are starting to open up, even though they're starting up slowly, they have a reservation system. People can't just show up. Everything's pretty well controlled and organized, but they are starting to recognize some of the income that they were hoping for by being able to open up their facilities again. And I just noticed that the playbook, or whatever they call that, where they put out all the events for the summer, that's out. So that was exciting. Yeah. And so I know that, like I said, I ran a business when I lived in California, and I'm super glad I'm retired, having this whole COVID situation. So anybody who's running a business of any sort or any kind of organization that depends on income has been hurt pretty badly through this. I also overheard some conversation yesterday where the parks might get some state assistance from some of the COVID relief income. So I'm very fuzzy on that. Deb probably knows a lot more about that than I do. But I think the parks have come through quite well, and they've continued with their expansion plans. But I'm sure it's been a very difficult year trying to do budgetary planning.
Okay. Deb, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I can go ahead. And Elizabeth touched a lot of the points. One of the things I love about this organization is that they have a great financial staff. And when we as a board got our first reporting, I think in May or June, as to where we were in regards to revenue and expenses, I was very impressed and happy that it wasn't more devastating than it was. They, of course, have lost a great deal of revenue, but they have balanced a lot of that with cutting expenses by not having staffing in the pools and the programs. As I said, the Team Up program, the child care program, was very, very expensive. They did receive a little bit of CARES money. And what Elizabeth is talking about, I think there's a bill before the legislature right now asking that special districts be eligible for some of the CARES funding that came under President Biden. At this point, it goes to city and county, but not special districts. So they're talking about that right now, which will be beneficial. To me, I mean, the bigger concern is, as Elizabeth says, the waiving of SDCs and how that affects our capital budget and our 5-year projections on projects that we're going to be working on. And we've had to make some adjustments to that based on the SDC waivers and how that cut into our income. We won't know exactly how COVID has affected us until it's over. But at this point, Bend Park and Rec has come out far ahead of a lot of other agencies, and I've been very impressed by their work.
Okay, well, let's switch gears and talk about concealed weapons. Just a little shift. With the legislature poised to ban concealed weapons in public buildings for those with the concealed carry permit, do you believe that the public buildings in the Park District should be gun-free zones where those with concealed carry permits would be required to check it at the door? And we are back at Deb, starting with this one.
You know, as an elected official, I feel like it's my role and responsibility to welcome the public. And I don't see how children taking swim lessons or families participating in a special event are going to feel safe if they see guns in the building. I'm not positive what that looks like. You know, what I would question is why a community member would feel the need to bring a weapon into a facility like a swimming pool or a recreation center. Personally, I just don't think it's the right place, but I would be willing to have conversations with community members that feel that it's their right and hear their perspective, because I honestly don't know. I don't know why you would want to carry a weapon into a recreation facility. So I think I would have to do some more research on that.
Elizabeth, would you like a repeat of the question?
No, but thank you.
Okay.
I guess I have to admit that I never see a need for a person to be armed in a public building, public space. I think that you don't have to look back very far in our country to see how much chaos that creates when the wrong person is bringing a weapon into a public space of any sort: school, recreation facility, House of Congress. It's just, to me, it's just completely inappropriate. I have to admit that I'm a very strong advocate for gun control, and I don't think there's any room for even a person bringing their weapon and having to check it in. They should not be bringing it into the building. I hate to think that we have to go so far as to have weapon controls or whatever at every building to make sure that people aren't bringing in weapons, but I would be even open to going that far if it was really considered to be a public threat to people bringing their children to go swimming. So yeah, I guess, and I'm a mom, so I guess I'm a very strong advocate for gun control in any sort, but definitely the parks.
And Capitol buildings, I think we can.
And Capitol buildings.
And
newspaper offices. I mean, everywhere. Grocery stores.
we're going to start this one with you, Elizabeth. What is your approach or philosophy on the overall riverbank restoration projects in the works right now? And how do we balance a growing community desire to use the river with a healthy ecosystem?
First of all, part of what I did as a business was to do transportation structures over riparian habitats, waterways, rivers, wild and scenic rivers, all kinds of places that are super sensitive and have aquatic species and all kinds of other protected species living along them. So my job was to be able to put facilities that people use across sensitive habitats, sensitive rivers, and so there's a balance there that I definitely understand how that works. What I'm a little concerned about the overuse of specifically the river with the amount of rafting that's allowed through the corridor through town. I have spent a lot of time hiking and biking and walking and doing various things along the river since I've been here. And it's not unbelievably crowded on the trails at this point. And I think that so far people are super respectful. But I'll add a few things. So first of all, I think the river is overused. And if it were up to me, I would suggest there be some sort of permit system for the rafting companies, especially down here in town, for how many people can be out on the river at one time, because it does adversely impact aquatic species, and it has erosion issues, and it affects the the mallards and the ducks and the laying the eggs and the whole 9 yards. It's just not good for the river to have that many people on the river at one time. In terms of the trails, I don't think we're there yet. I think the trails are super well maintained. The only issue I am concerned about along the trails, and again in the river especially, is garbage. And there's a lot of garbage in the river. And there seems to be, I've been here almost 6 years, it seems to be more and more garbage being dumped along the riparian corridor along the rivers from users. Bend is much better about that than most places I've ever lived, but it's still an issue. And the more trash and plastic and bottles and crap that you put out there, the harder it is for the wildlife and the natural habitat to maintain what they need to survive. So yeah, I'm all about balance, but I don't see, and this is again my personal opinion, I don't see the human species to be far superior to the wildlife species. I think with it, as far as I'm concerned, we're just part of it, and we shouldn't be dominating it, and we certainly shouldn't be allowed to destroy it. And so as far as I'm concerned, Bend does have some control over those things, and it is a very popular place, and I'm all about encouraging tourism, and it's a huge part of our economic engine. But I think it's just all about responsibility and maintaining some sense of order so that the natural resources can also survive.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Yep. Thank you very much. Deb, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, but thank you. I got that. And, I wouldn't disagree with much of anything that Elizabeth said. It is all about the balance. And I have had, many sleepless nights trying to figure out where that balance is, because this is before us right now. We do have a river restoration plan in the works. We are now taking community input, and there is no way we're going to make everybody happy. Especially when you bring in the mix of dogs, because there's, a great movement that people want their dogs to be able to access the river. And I'm a dog lover, and I greatly understand that. And I know the little patch they're on, but dogs are very damaging to the bank of a river. So what we're trying to do now is determine what the balance is of that. And for every dog owner, we also have an environmentalist who is giving us their opinion. And I think that it's just going to be a lot more community outreach and finding out exactly where that balance is. And I'm certain we're not going to make everybody happy. I wouldn't agree on a permit at this point system. And the reason is equitable access. And if you're a family, and I'm not necessarily talking about the tourists who could drive over here and go on vacation, but if you're a mom with 3 kids and you can get a $2 inner tube and float down the river 3 or 4 times, that's a great day of fun, and it's very affordable. So I would hate to implement a permit system that would be a barrier to some families for participating, or some children. But this project's not going away, and whoever's on the board is going to hear about it for the next several months as we try to determine exactly what that balance is. The hope is, by figuring out and developing access points, those will be the points that are used, and not the entire river wherever people, and like Elizabeth, I float the river, I drive by it fairly regularly. And, last summer I saw people accessing the river and going through more brush than I'd ever seen before. On the other hand, there wasn't a lot of activities they could do last year, and being on a river trail was one of them. So I don't have a great answer on it, but I'm certain that I'm going to hear a lot about it, or Elizabeth will, whoever's on the board, and we'll have to come to a very tough decision.
All right. Well, now we come to what we like to call the lightning round, touching on a very perennial topic in a very short amount of time. So this one's short answer, 1 minute or less. Deb, you start. What is your approach? Let's see. What is your opinion about how BPRD should handle the dredging of Mirror Pond?
Well, that is not fair to put that in a 1 minute answer. But what I will say is that my priority for Mirror Pond is to finish the pathway, the trail through Drake Park, and to get the easements we need to complete that trail. And the fish passage, which the fish passage is in committee right now, being led by the Intergovernmental Council. I don't believe that BPRD should spend additional funds above and beyond the 300,000 that are already allocated to dredge Mirror Pond.
So you did that so beautifully in such a short amount of time.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, would you like a repeat of the question?
No, but thank you. And Deb is way more familiar with this than I am. I know what I know from reading the newspaper, yours included. But I do think that Deb's right about the financial obligation for dredging. It's as far as I've been able to tell from my reading, is that it's not the property of the parks. That responsibility lies in other hands. So I can see why the parks contribute to the cost, but should not overall be responsible for it. The other part of dredging, anytime you say dredging in my business, that entails some sort of potential hazmat. And so if you're dealing with any kind of contaminants in that pond, that gets unbelievably expensive when you're talking about disposing of the solids. And so again, you wouldn't want the parks to be any kind of financial responsible party for the dredging materials. So I think there's legal issues, and I'm sure that, even though I don't know this, but I'm sure the parks has a legal counsel that's advising them on this, but it's not one of those things where you want to be real careful. And then it's just super complicated because you're dealing with silt and downstream contamination from the release of silt, impacts to fish. There's just a lot of environmental issues associated with dredging a pond. So my personal opinion was, if they can contribute 300,000 and be done with it, that's great.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our lightning round. Well done. You put that question in lightning round because it can go deep.
Go on and on.
Dredging word. So this next question has to do with trail interconnectivity. Elizabeth, I'll come to you. It's not a lightning round. Is Bend Metro Park or Bend Park and Rec District doing enough toward the cause of safe multimodal transit? Are they upholding their part of the community bargain?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, because yesterday at the end of the tour was at the new park called Alpenglow over on the southwest side or southeast side of town. And one of the opportunities with that park is connecting with a lot of different trails throughout that part of Bend, including connecting to the trail that goes down to that's going to go down to the museum and on down to lava lands and places. So it's pretty exciting, actually. And I did ask the question of the trail person yesterday of what do you do about the multimodal and how I was asking if all of these trails are going to be paved, because one of the problems when you pave trails, I mean, it's a great thing, but it's also a dangerous thing when you have bicyclists who want to go fast. And it can cause all kinds of problems if you've got runners, walkers, speedy bikes, children, tricycles, dogs. It can become quite dangerous, actually. And so my question to him was, how are you going to manage the safety issues? And he said, well, at this point, we don't really have that much of a problem with it. But I foresaw as Bend grows and as more people use the trails, there's going to be more conflict, and there's going to probably have to be some sort of management. I moved up here from Sacramento, and in Sacramento, the American River Parkway Trail, which is 26 miles from the Folsom Dam all the way down to the Sacramento River along the American River, which is, it's a beautiful facility and it's a riparian corridor. But that trail gets such unbelievable use that you have rules where the runners run, you know, one place and the bicyclists go this way, and we have miles per hour. The bikes aren't allowed to go more than 15 miles an hour. But it still was so dangerous that when I was raising my children there, we never went on the trail with little kids and tricycles. So I would hate for Ben to get like that, where there's, because it creates conflict. It takes away from the joy of being out on the trails. To answer your question, I do believe in multimodal, but I think if you're going to do multimodal, you have to be cognizant of these issues. The interconnectedness is something I'm super interested in. I think, again, I'm going to wade into controversial stuff, but I do believe that there should be some pedestrian bike bridges added to the system over the Deschutes River, north and south of town, to add to that connectivity. You know, I hear things in the paper about how, well, we can't build a bridge because bridges have been banned because of the moratorium, but the moratorium was talking about road bridges. And even though it didn't specify bikes, pedestrian bridges, somebody needs to go in there and negotiate that, because pedestrian bike bridges are a whole different ballgame than road bridges. So that's A. B, I've heard, oh, you can't build a new bridge in a wild and scenic corridor, and that's nonsense. I've done 4 or 5 rehabs or replacement bridges in wild and scenic corridors. Everything's about negotiation, and everything's about interacting with the agencies and understanding what the rules are. But I would hate for Ben to like stop doing some of these interconnective projects because of public controversy and or being told that that there's fixed rules that you can't negotiate, you can't do it, because that's not true.
Let me stop and give Deb a chance to answer the question, because we're going to run out of time.
Okay.
Deb, do you need me to repeat the question?
Do you mind repeating it? I want to make sure I answer both parts.
This one's on trail interconnectivity, and do you feel that the Park District is doing enough toward the cause of providing safe multimodal transit?
I do believe we are doing our share. And when I say I believe we're doing our share, it's because it's been about a year and a half ago now, we hired a planner specifically about trails, because we knew that it was going to become an issue. And so if we weren't doing what we should have been doing now, we will be doing it soon. We also have board members who are very interested in the transportation elements of trails within Bend. So it comes up a lot in our board meetings. And the connectivity is so important. And the Bend community is so clever. They figure out ways to connect to trails that aren't even necessarily there. But then they tell us about him, and we realize it's, maybe a property we should be interested in or should look into for transportation. I am with Elizabeth. You have to be careful about the mixing, but I haven't seen that as an issue. Most of the bicyclists that are on the trails currently seem to be very cognizant of families with strollers, and Bend as a whole is pretty polite. So we haven't really run into the conflicts that you might see in a bigger city. You're never doing enough for everybody, but we're learning and growing, and we're certainly learning and growing in trails. And Bend has a wealth of trails compared to most communities. So I would give us a B+.
A B+, okay, that works. So this one starts off with Deb again. The needs and concerns of people of color have come more to the forefront this year. What more can Bend Parks and Rec be doing to support equity and anti-racism?
Well, currently we have hired a consultant and are doing a DEI analysis, an internal and external analysis of what we are doing and where we stand in those efforts. Are we doing enough? No. We are hoping, I'm running on a slate with a young man, a person of color, because he could bring a lived experience to the board and the administration of the park district that we don't currently have. I have been, we took surveys as a board and staff about, how well we were doing in diversity and equity initiatives. And the staff was much harder on themselves than the board was. So what that gave me was hope that the staff wants to change what we're doing and they want to fix the inequities that there are. I'm anxious to see what comes out of this consultant and where we go from there. But I do know that as a board, equity is applied. We are applying that lens to almost every agenda item every month. It does get complicated. We were talking about a watershed analysis to parks and for people to get to parks, and what equity filter do you use? Do you use demographics? Do you use race? Do you use density? So there's a lot of work to do, but we are going in that direction.
Thank you. Would you like a repeat of that question, Elizabeth?
Thank you. Did I unmute? Oh, unmute. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, yeah, I talked with, is it Javier yesterday? Is that who you're talking about, Deb? Yeah. And he does have a lot of great ideas. I think he'll be, if he wins, I think he'll be super good for the board. But one of the things that I've observed living here, whereas in California, especially when I lived in the Bay Area, Caucasians are very much the minority in most places. Up here, we're sort of the majority, but there's a lot of socioeconomic levels here. And so I guess I'm totally in line with what Deb said about being equitable in terms of providing opportunities for all different cultures, but also all different economic levels. And I think that ties back to what Deb and I were both saying about these waivers, because as you add homes and housing for lower income, middle income people, you need to provide access to parks, and you need to encourage people to use the parks. You need to make it easy to use the parks. You need to make it affordable. Like what Deb was saying about the permits for the river, I agree with that. I don't think that people should be charged to use the river, but I do think that and I'm not going to go back into that question, but I do think that some sort of control over the numbers would be helpful. But I think the one of the great things about the system we currently have is that it is affordable. Recreation in Bend is unbelievably inexpensive, given the quality of it. And I want to continue that, and I want to continue that for all of our populations. We can't do that if we take money away from the parks to build more housing. It doesn't work. And like I said, having lived a lot of different places, and I've seen several really nice places get destroyed by growth. I'm not anti-growth, but I am very much interested in responsible growth. And again, responsible growth includes providing parks for everybody, especially people who use parks as their recreation place because they can't afford a big house with a big yard.
Well, that's, something that was actually kind of a piggyback question that I was going to ask next. And I think, Elizabeth, you've answered it pretty well. I just want to give Deb a quick opportunity, knowing that we're running out of time, just to ask what your thoughts are on the needs of low-income park users and how we can support them, what your philosophy is around that.
Well, my philosophy is that everybody deserves a park and everybody deserves to participate in programs and swim teams and soccer clubs. And financial barriers is just one of the things that happens. And we have a pretty decent system with the scholarship, but there's more that we can do. And the way that we can do that is by collaborating with agencies within the community that already have the trust of the families. And I would use, for example, the Mountain Star families. We serve about 200 families within that group. And my guess is maybe 1 or 2% are using any of the Park District facilities. And we need to find a way to bridge that gap. Do we need to offer free swimming lessons to every 4th grader in the Beaverton School District? Do we need, somehow we have to find a way to get everyone has the right to play. They absolutely do. And they'll be better citizens for it. So we need to continue working on that. And that is my flag.
We are at the end of our time together here. Elizabeth, I'd like to give you first opportunity to answer this question. If we missed anything, or if there is there's something you'd like the readers and listeners to know about your platform.
I don't think we've missed anything. We've certainly talked about the issues that are of most importance to me. I just wanted to say that it's a tremendous opportunity to run for the board. I do a lot of volunteer work as well as Deb does in the community, and it's really exciting to be able to do volunteer work where you actually feel like you're making a difference and implementing change. And so I also am bringing to this opportunity. I'm a master gardener. I'm a dog owner of 4 dogs, so I certainly understand a lot of dog issues, and so I feel like there would be a wonderful opportunity to be involved in this. And if my plan is, if I don't end up on the board at this time, I'm going to get involved with the Bend Parks and Rec District at some level, whether I work on the foundation or get on the budget committee or do something, because it's just such a great organization. And at my age, you need to keep the mind rolling. So this is one of those opportunities that is very exciting to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Deb, is there anything that issue that we didn't touch on that you'd like to elaborate on, or something about the platform that you'd like?
No, really, this has actually been very painless, and thank you for your time, and thank you for interviewing us. The one thing I'll say, because I've been saying it for 2 weeks now, is that being appointed to the board felt like a comprehensive process. But running for the board has been such a learning experience. And I feel like I know more about the pulse of the community and what they want us to work on and where their passions lie than I did before. So I really am appreciative of the opportunity, and I'm appreciative of having an opponent, because I think Elizabeth has stepped up the game in running a campaign. And I've had to work harder and know more and go out and get more information. So it's just been a great process. Plus, I think Elizabeth is wonderful, and she should be involved with Bend Park and Rec in some manner.
Thank you, Deb.
Well, Deb, Nicole and I have often talked about the fact that we need to make this process more painful for the candidates, and I feel like we've missed that mark again. So.
Yeah, well, we were being teased yesterday because Deb and I keep complimenting each other, and we're like, hey, we're women. We believe in each other.
That's how
right?
girls do it.
Let's do it together. Yeah. So we can't get into that nasty politics that we are all very familiar with.
Well, thank you both for joining us today and being willing to serve and put yourself out there in the public forum for us. It's a great honor to spend this time with you, and we appreciate the work that you do.
Okay, thank you again.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks to you
curious,
both.
Erin. I see there's gifts behind you on your couch. Are
Yeah,
those
that's for us.
for Elizabeth and I?
If you were here, possibly. They those are actually winners from the salmon run who are.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So, thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.